Real Conversations. Today we have Kelly Shapiro, aka Malibu Kelly, lawyer to the stars, business lawyer, startup lawyer, Harvard law graduate. Yeah. She's going to tell us about the journey, how to get to the mountaintop, and how to stay there. Life balance, business balance. We got a little bit of everything going on today. Real Conversations. Let's go. Malibu Kelly, Kelly Shapiro, she is here. She is an incredible lady. Thank you so much for coming today.
You're very welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Now, I will tell you, North Carolina, we don't get a lot of people, or we haven't met a lot of people that actually go to Harvard Law School. And I'm going to say the word Harvard Law School a whole lot of times because hopefully by the time we finish today, there are going to be some young minds who are inspired by you and your dream and what you show forth on this particular show. So where are you from, Kelly?
I am from Hermosa Beach, California. It's a small beach town. If you fly into LA, you fly into LAX, and you're actually flying over a beach. It's called El Segundo. So, so you're flying into LAX, and then if you would have so you fly, and you're probably about 30 minutes, 35 minutes from downtown LA with no traffic. But if you go 2 beaches south than when your plane lands in El Segundo, that's where I'm from. So it's 2 beaches south of LAX. So it's like 20 minutes. So that's why my mom picks me up from the airport a lot, because I'll leave my car at her house, and then it's just like a 15, 20-minute drive, and then I get my car and come back up north. I live north of LAX. So I'm still at the beach, but I'm now 5 beaches north. Towards Malibu more.
Got you. Now you are an entertainment lawyer, and
half of my practice is entertainment. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you have offices in California, Philadelphia, and New York.
I have a presence in all of those places. Yes.
All right. And on the daily, you are working deals for major entertainment artists as well as people that are in the movies, and when they need help they call you.
Yeah.
How did you get there? How did you at what point did you decide that you wanted to be a lawyer?
Oh, well, that's easy. You know, I at first wanted to be a doctor. I just really wanted to help people. And I thought, being a doctor, that's immediate, right? You're touching them, you can fix them. But when I realized in AP Chem, maybe not. I love physics. I was always good at physics, but not chem and bio. And I thought, learning about the civil rights movement in history class, and I remember my history teacher, Mrs. Saviano in Redondo Beach, and they were talking about civil rights, Thurgood Marshall. I know who went to Howard Law, but he went to Harvard for something, I think like an LLM or something, and all I needed to hear was Harvard, and I was like, Thurgood Marshall went to Harvard, huh? And I just put in, but I knew I wanted to go into law because I didn't realize that the law can also help affect change, not immediate like a doctor fixing you, sure, but you can affect change with the law. And so that's when. So I was 15 in AP history class.
Now, so that's interesting, because once you found out that Harvard was the best school, what was instilled within you that made you feel like you want to go to the best school as opposed to, any school? Because you hear it, and even it's like, oh man, Harvard, what made you?
It's a label for sure. And I don't have like labels and stuff, and I don't do the designer stuff, but those are my only labels. That's my Harvard degree right there. That's it. It's in Latin, so I think it says I graduated. But no, so I definitely was always academic, and I think I told you earlier, I wasn't a very popular kid. I had a weight problem. I had, braces, the glasses, and the only Black girl for miles. So no one thought I was cute. I wasn't skinny or blonde. if I look like I do now back then, I probably would have had a much more fun experience in high school and all that stuff, but it's fine. I knew later on, actually I had a basketball coach that I was, sad that, I never had dates or whatever. And he pointed to the popular kids and he was like, Kelly, they're peaking now, you're going to peak in life. And I was like, yeah. And that stuck. And I was like, yeah. And by the way, I've never seen any of those people from high school. And, I wish them luck. I'm sure they're all happy and whatever. But I was like, man, keep it moving. So, but I was a late bloomer in every regard, but also academically. I was always naturally smart, went to good public schools only. My parents didn't have money for, or my mother didn't have money for many of those private schools and stuff. But I always could do good at school without having to try too hard. And I think it wasn't until like sophomore year in high school, I was like, oh, well, I gotta make sure I have a good GPA and get good test scores and stuff. And thankfully, my older brother, who, although we didn't grow up together really, he came to live with my mom and I when he was 16. So I was 13, 14, when he finally got enough of my father's insanity. But still, seeing my brother, he was so smart, especially with math. He got a perfect score on the math section of the SAT. Little things like that. It was like, it just sets your bar, I feel like. Oh, sure. And he was the captain of the football team or some such like that, very athletic. And so and so I was always on basketball, track, that kind of thing. But definitely because my brother's academic advancements, it was definitely, I'm thankful that I had him as someone to look to. And he got into every college he applied to, a bunch of Ivies, not Harvard, we'll put a pin in that. But he ended up not going because he didn't want to owe any debt. And I get that, and he is my father's child because they're, no debt. My father's extremely cheap, I think. But sometimes you do have something. So my brother ended up going to USC. I remember I was maybe a sophomore, junior, and I told my brother, I was like, maybe, I wonder if I'll apply to Stanford. And he was like, well, it's kind of too late. I mean, for you to redo it all, you should have started to get perfect grades and all these things earlier. And so I actually didn't apply, and that was my one regret. I should have, but who cares? I ended up going to USC because he was there mostly because my mother made me so scared of the outside world by having me on lock in Hermosa. It's like I'm a little fat black girl. No one cared what I was doing, but she would not let me exercise outside, nothing. It was like a quarantine. That's why I'm like, oh, you mean childhood? Yeah, welcome to quarantine.
Your mom wasn't in the Marines, was she?
Yes, my mother is a former Marine. She's from Chester, Pennsylvania. She went, well, my mother who, actually, I don't have a picture of her, but she kind of looks, my mother's darker than her, right? So my mother's dark skinned, beautiful, very confident woman, which is why I've always, that's the thing with you and your wife. Your kids learn from you. So my mother, even though a lot of people, make fun of her throughout, or say something about her skin tone or something, she told me, she was like, I always knew I was fine. And I'm like, yes, Jessie. So that's where I get, my confidence. But she told me in high school, her guidance counselor in Chester, Pennsylvania, told her, well, and this is in the 60s, of course, so under that frame, the late 60s, said, well, you're too dark to be anyone's secretary. And you don't have enough money to go to college. So she enlisted in the Marines. But it was the best decision, and she tells me that to this day, best decision. And people poo-poo on going to the service. No, it can be a great, avenue and set you up for a career. So she went there at 18, 1969, and then went to, the training and all these things, and eventually got assigned to be an air traffic controller. And then she was given 3 choices of assignments to go be an air traffic controller, and LA was her 3rd choice. My mother hates cold weather, so that's why she was ready to get out of the East Coast. So she had Atlanta, Dallas, and LA. She got LA. And she didn't know anyone here. And my father, who's originally from Brooklyn and much older than my mother, he also hated cold weather, moved to actually Hawaii when he was 18. I only found this out after his death a few years ago. But yeah, went to Hawaii and yada, yada, yada. They met in Marina Del Rey in the 70s. And then my brother came along in 78. And then I came along later. We're not going to talk about ages. I came along in the 80s. And that's what it was. But so I went to USC after my brother, and also because I definitely had to get out of my mom's house, but I wanted to be close enough that if something freaked me out, I can just drive home. And so that's what I did. It was a really good decision. I was an athlete, but on academic scholarship, or on partial academic. So I always had jobs. I was hustling and preparing to apply to the best law school. So I started studying for the LSAT like freshman, sophomore year. Like my teammates would make fun of me. The basketball girls that I love, they were my roommates, and they'd be like, "Oh, there goes Kelly going to the library again during the summer with no classes." And I'm like, "That's all right, I'm doing my thing." I didn't tell anyone where I was applying to law school. There are so many haters and so many people who limit themselves that's why they project and be haters on you. So, you know, I wanted to tell people, I learned my lesson in high school because so many people, you know, and I went to school with mostly white people, and they'd be like, affirmative action. I'm like, no, actually, I scored much higher than you on the SAT.
What did your assistant coach say?
In high school?
Yeah, he was a big advocate for Harvard Law, right?
The assistant coach laughed at me. Yeah. Oh, you know my story.
What was that all about? What was that all about?
I told him I wanted to be a lawyer, and he laughed. But in my head, I think because I was an old soul and could see, you know, what time it was. I'm like, in my head, I didn't say this, but as a 15-year-old or whatever, I was like, "You're a girls' basketball assistant coach. Like, why am I taking any advice from you? If you don't beat it." Yeah, so that means, so I think the title of the podcast, one of the podcasts I was on, but Yolanda's, how she did it, mine was called Check Your Source. Like, now who's saying this? Should I be trusting their advice? Are they projecting their failures on me? That happens a lot. So I learned that in college, just to keep my mouth shut. And I was just applying to the best law schools in the land and stuff. And then all of a sudden, the acceptance letters started to pour in. And I'm like, okay. And then when the big one came, I went straight to my mother's house in Hermosa Beach, and my brother was there, actually, because by then my brother had graduated. My brother is an academic superstar. I mean, he graduated in 3 years from USC with a business degree, and then stayed for 2 extra years to get a master's degree while he played football. They had given him a full scholarship by then. So, but he kind of, I think he was just, I felt very blessed that I've always known I want to be a lawyer, which is honestly, like, we say we want this one career path because that's what we've been conditioned. It's just like, no, you grow up, you go to college, you go to things. And I think now we're seeing that that is also a hustle, and all these people are graduating with so much debt and all these things, and not getting it. And there's no ROI. There's no return on your investment on these degree programs. That's why when I see some people who like spend, you know, $500,000 almost on a law school that has, you know, it doesn't even the name thing, because I know a lot of people that have done amazing things with going to schools that you've never heard of. It doesn't matter. But if you don't have it in you to be the best, and that school also is, you have to be strategic with, you know, what you're doing. And so I knew I was just going to apply to the best law schools I could. And I had a couple of safeties, but even my safeties were good. But it's because I knew what I was bringing to the table. I mean, my letters of recommendations were fire, you know, and strategic. And also, you know what I did? I think this is the best piece of advice. I went around to all of my peers who were older than me that had already went through the process of applying to law school. And I said, tell me what you did wrong, or that you wish you would have done differently. And that's what I did. I did everything they did wrong, I did right. I went to a different LSAT prep course, because the one that they did, Kaplan or whatever, was BS. I went to the one, or I did this. So I just tried to learn from others' mistakes.
Now, I think that's something that I didn't learn until I got to law school was which questions to ask, like how to get information. You always just seem so self-aware at times, you know, who to listen
Yeah, so,
to.
I mean, so I wish though. There's a lot of times. I think I'm better now, but I wouldn't ask for help because I didn't want to seem stupid or like I just didn't know. Because when and you think you're the only one like going to Harvard. So let me just back up. So I applied to all these schools. The acceptance letters start coming in. The Harvard package came in, and honestly, it wasn't even about me. I raced straight to my mom's house, and I remember she was in her room, and I had this big box, you know, so you know what the deal is when you get the big box. And I opened it and I gave it to her, and she just, I think I could still hear her screaming from that day in 2001. That yeah, she was just, I mean, it was her acceptance, you know. Because neither of my parents went to college, you know, and it was great. It was great. And so, yeah, and the thing is, I wanted to be like, wait, Mom, but I got in Columbia and I got in the Penn and all that stuff. And she was like, you're going to Harvard. Which I get, and I'm glad I went because, you know, like I said, I don't buy designer things. I don't have a Tesla. I own my car. I don't lease it. You know, I'll get there eventually, but I don't keep up with the Joneses and stuff. But this is the only label that I've paid for because I know that will guarantee me, it may not guarantee a job, but an interview at least for the rest of my life.
Did you know any lawyers while you were in undergrad or beforehand?
None.
So everyone that you were actually kind of navigating with would have been potential students or
or professors that like if you like Erwin Chemerinsky was my sociology I think professor, I think.
The guy that wrote the book.
Yeah, he's now at NYU Law.
The con law book.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know why I remember that.
Erwin, yeah. I mean, he's a constitutional law scholar. He's amazing. Okay. And I'm pretty sure I got him to write a letter of recommendation. But anyone who went to Harvard Law, I was always like, tell me your secrets. But it's usually professors, because yeah, I didn't know anyone who. No, I don't know. I mean, from my last name, a lot of people make assumptions about me all day. I don't know any lawyers. No, I'm the first one. I definitely on the first side of the black side. On the white side, apparently, I think there's some tax attorney dude, but I'm like, I don't know him. You know? So I'm like he's like 80 or something in San Francisco, and I was like, well, if you'd like to meet me, he can send me an email. That's great, but I'm not one to, you know, be begging someone for.
Well, I will say this: if I get any letter, and the name Shapiro is up there, I'm sweating as soon as I.
Yeah, no, I use that to my advantage.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
It comes in handy, and that's the one thing I feel like my father did in my best interest. For thanks for the last name, Joel. It does help, but it's not descriptive of my actual upbringing and, you know, who I stand for. So yeah, so I got the Harvard acceptance, and I was like, all right, well, we're doing this, and yeah, I went straight. I graduated May 10th from college. May 11th, I was on a flight East Coast, and I planned everything out. I mean, I do too now. It's funny with my career now. My life, I think the reason why the quarantine hasn't been too bad for me is because if your clients are entertainment and startups, there is no stability. It's just like, and that's another reason why I didn't start my own thing until only 5 years ago. I needed that full 10 years of coming out, figuring out, because again, I didn't have any mentors or guidance or anything. Like I wanted to make my mistakes and learn how to practice law on someone else's dime, not someone's career, not on my Muna Youssef, my client Muna Youssef or Jeff. I didn't want to make mistakes on because it's their career. So as soon as I got out and I had a bumpy road out of law school, the partner I was supposed to be, you know, under his tutelage at this firm, he ended up leaving. I'm like, wait, what do I do? And I had no one looking out for me. So I just had to keep it on. Thankfully, a girlfriend, of course, Black woman, got me an interview at her firm. And so I was able to just hop over to another firm. But then the financial crisis, economic crisis of 2007-8 happened, and then I had to keep it, you know, I always keep being flex. And so I just like, all right, well, I'm at my big firm. They only have an opening at that big firm's LA office in the tax department, and I'm not a tax attorney. So I used that time to study for the California bar, because Pennsylvania was my first state that I was licensed in. And then I took California bar. It wasn't bad, about crashing at my mom's and studying on the beach. Got a sick tan, it was great. But I also was freaked out, like, am I gonna get a job after this? And so I just kept on moving, you know, studied for the bar, took the bar. By then I had been recruited in Seattle randomly, but I had to be open, because the one thing about my mother, and you know women from the South, and I feel like
I know women from the South, yes.
Right, and just black mothers is like, well, you're not just gonna be sitting in my house with no job, like a bump on the log.
That's the number one quote. That's the number one quote.
What are we doing here, friends? Now, male relatives could, but apparently for the conversation.
You know my region well. You know my region well.
Right. So I knew that I couldn't just sit at Jesse's house, and so I had to keep on hustling. And I went to this job, and it turned out to be a nightmare. But if I didn't have that experience, and I always collect my angels wherever I go, I have to look for the positive, even if it's like whatever. It's like, yeah, but if I didn't have that skill set that I got during that crazy job under that crazy CEO, I wouldn't have gotten the job that ended up getting me back to LA. That was in Malibu, but I got those skills when I was at the crazy job in Seattle. But after Seattle, I had to get out of Dodge. And I went back to Pennsylvania because there was a firm that needed Pennsylvania licensed attorneys to start their first office. And it was a part of Pennsylvania, it was not Philadelphia. And that's one piece of advice I will give is try, if you can help it. Sometimes you just need the job. You need a freaking paycheck to pay back those loans. But I would say try not to move anywhere just for the job. Like if you wouldn't live there without the, like if it had nothing to do with the job, would you want to live in this city?
Yeah.
Fighter, you back me up in a corner. I'm gonna fight my way out. And so I was like, well, no one's coming to save me. So it took me a long time to get a job back in California because everyone wants a job in California. So, and it was hard for me. I mean, sending out resumes, and the job I eventually got, it didn't exist when I first moved out there because it was the trust wasn't formed until 2011-12. So I was hurting for a job, but it's timing. And so my specific skill sets, and of course, since I'm from LA, it helped, so they didn't have to, I was like, you don't have to pay for relocation, nothing, just give me a job. And I took a slightly lower paying job, but it was in Malibu and it was for a REIT, Real Estate Investment Trust. And I had so much experience in real estate and finance when I first started my career in Philly, that I got the job in Malibu. And thankfully that finally brought me back home, brought me back closer to my mom and everything. But I still, when I came back to LA, finally, that was December 2012, I worked so hard for that REIT because we went public in the middle of my tenure. I looked up and I was back in LA for 2 years and I hadn't seen any of my family or friends because I was working so hard for someone else. And from a billionaire family, they funded this new REIT to essentially go and buy single family homes across America. And when I started, it was only 8,000 homes. And when I left, there were 33,000 homes. And so I was the attorney for the process for everything from due diligence to actually acquiring the homes to getting a tenant in. And, but I was all high level. That's when people ask me for like real estate advice. I'm like, I can help you sell like 300 houses at once, but not one, like between REITs, like, high level B2B. But yeah, so that's what took me so long. So I would say like, look, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So even if you have to take a job that you don't love, just remember that you're building up your resume. skill set and your skills, and also your soft skills, how to be able to communicate with people that you're not, used to, or that you may not like to.
Sure.
But so every opportunity just to learn and get better. And so that's kind of the attitude. I mean, it was either that or just become a miserable, drunk or worse or something,
Yeah, I mean,
so I just try to keep it moving.
Yeah, it seems as though, and it's bad, but I talk about it all the time on the channel, is, a good percentage of lawyers become miserable drunks. You see them and, their life is out of whack. One thing and that I really want to get you on is because every time I see you always in such high spirits, and I think being in the profession, we learn to kind of decipher, like, okay, is this the show face, or is this, the weight that you're growing, especially when you dealt with anxiety before, and I talk about that a lot. Have you ever in your career, and the stresses and anxiety that comes with it, have you ever kind of delved into different coping mechanisms that you use when times can get a little tight?
I don't do anxiety. Like, I don't even, I try to say that, I read The Power of Now a long time ago. I also, you just try to put as much good stuff in your head to block off, the other stuff. So like the 4 agreements, 7 spiritual laws, Deepak Chopra, all these things, those will help you not have to reach for, they'll just give you better tools, which become the coping mechanisms. Okay. Because back in the day, I would fix a Kelly cocktail. I had a whole line of like low carb drinks that I would bust out at parties and stuff. And I guess alcohol was and food for sure, But it's just a way it's a way to push down the feelings that you don't want to deal with.
Okay.
So it does suck to have to sit in your feelings about, am I ever gonna be satisfied with my career, or or my personal life or family or whatever? All those things are always, nothing's ever gonna be perfect. So you have to just, wherever you are at that present moment, have to accept where you are. And if you don't like it, what are you doing to change it or move forward? And when I was at that really, really awful job where I just felt like I was I felt like time went back. It was like the 1960s, and it's only black and white people, and racism is like we can't even, it was just a crazy, crazy wave. But when I finally left that firm job to go back to Cali, all these people were so surprised. They're like, really? We thought you were so happy. It's because I was lying to you, because if I would have showed up miserable and a B and all this, how was that making anyone's life better? I'm making someone else more miserable, making myself worse, So I always try to slap them on. And I wish I would have been more kind of creative. I used to do a blog with one of my friends back in the day, and that was a nice creative outlet, but I don't have too many of those. But I think I've always exercised. I think that's the athlete in me, and I'm definitely addicted to those endorphins. So that keeps you up and in a good mood. And I've always loved comedy. I don't do drama, like negative stuff, or I don't want to see true crime and, learning about, murders and stuff. I try to keep it light, keep it fun. So I think my old coping mechanisms, which I had to let go. With the alcohol, it wasn't until there's a great venture capitalist. She just came out with a book called It's About Damn Time. She's the one, she went from being homeless to running a venture capital firm, specifically investing in Black, brown, LGBTQ, underrepresented founders. She actually had posted a book on her Twitter because she said she had been wanting to stop drinking. She's like, I don't even like drinking anymore. It's just at everything we go to, if it's venture capital for startups or entertainment, there's alcohol everywhere. It's just wine. And I've never been a wine drinker. My mother, listen, Jessie drank Southern Comfort when I was growing up, and then she transitioned to gin. So I was always a hard liquor girl when vodka, so they call it, the skinny bee. But when I'd go to these things and, there's always wine and stuff, and I'd be drinking, I'm like, I don't even like this. I'm just doing it for the social, cues. And when I read this book called The Naked Mind. It's by Annie, what is Annie something? But The Naked Mind, how to like control alcohol and get something, but it was like The Naked Mind. And when I read that, or I think I listened to it, an audiobook, it was just so interesting. It's just like now I'm reading a book called The Power of Habit. It's like why we do the things.
Yeah, I read that. It's crazy, right?
Isn't it good? Yeah. Why we do what we do. It's the same thing with the alcohol book. And once you kind of learn that, you can't unlearn it. So then every time you reach for your like bad habit, you know exactly what you're doing because you know, like, this is a bad habit. Why don't you create a new one, a different cue, a different, reward. So it's like that, reading those books to kind of unlearn the things we're conditioned in and programmed. I think those definitely help. So you can just get better coping mechanisms, but it's a constant struggle. I mean, with quarantine, I was a little scared, like, oh Lord, I'm gonna start drinking, or like even like with portion control. That's always been my thing. Like, yeah, I eat clean, but you can still, there are plenty of wildly overweight vegans. Like it doesn't, it's about your choices and stuff. And I definitely emotionally eating, bored, scared, anxiety, eating and stuff. And I recently just listened to a podcast by Dr. Tema. You know her?
I've heard of, yes.
Yeah, Thema. Amazing. Her podcast. It's called Homecoming. And I just listened to the episode on mindless eating, and especially what to do now in in quarantine. And it was all about, first of all, exposing why you're overeating, right? Or whatever, because the eating, it could be eating, drinking, shopping, gambling, whatever the thing is, It's never about the thing. It's like, what are you running from? So once you figure that out, it's like, oh, I don't want to think about, oh my gosh, am I ever going to scale my business? Am I ever going to get married? Am I ever going to, no, it's because you don't want to deal with those feelings. So if I sit here and make a drink or just dive into this, 12-pack of donuts, I don't have to think about those other things. But when you sit and face those emotions or anxiety, it's scary at first, but it's so worth it. And once you push through and you know that you can push through, and then it's just, you create a habit, right? It's 21 days to make a habit. And and actually with the book about alcohol, it is so good. It's this thing that if you read it, it's basically cold turkey. Like the majority of people who read it, they just stop immediately drinking. And that's what happened to me. It just literally, I forgot that alcohol existed. I swear to you, I'd go to restaurants and forget that you can order alcohol. Yeah. You have to be ready to receive.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. We're definitely going to link that book. Before you leave, I see that the first part of your career where you were trying to find it. When did you find the love for the entertainment law?
Right. We wanted to go back to that. Yeah. So when I started my career in Philadelphia, and I was at the big law firm, by the way, that was the best decision of my life to start my career in Philly, which kudos to my mother, because she was like, when I was freaked out with New York, I'm like, New York's going to eat me alive. Oh my God. And she was like, well, don't they have law firms in Philly? And I was like, they do. And so it was such a great starter city for me. But when I moved there, my neighbor happened to be, the first time we met, was 2004, was Amir Questlove Thompson. So I got in with all the Roots guys, but I was just, and again, I didn't look like this. If I show you a picture of what I looked like when I first met them, that's why I love all those guys, because they loved me when I was still on my come up. Ooh, dark hair, 20 more pounds, puffy because of drinking. And I just became, I was their lawyer friend. I was the lawyer homie. And so even though I'd have to research everything because I didn't know. I was like 4 seconds out of law school, but they'd ask me questions, not usually sometimes about entertainment deals, but everything. And so just getting to be friends with those guys, I really started to get in, obviously, into the music scene and I became a volunteer lawyer with Philadelphia Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts, PLLC. And there's a Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts organization in every state, I think, or there should be. So when artists, when they're hurting for legal advice, that's the first thing you should do. Go to your states, like, because I volunteer with New York, and we do legal clinics for freelancers and entertainment clients, and they have referrals. It's like, oh no, you're actually not, because of course you have to be in the state, but they have this big huge book of referrals. Like, oh, you're in this state here. So I would definitely suggest that. But for lawyers who want to get into entertainment, start volunteering with the Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts or whatever volunteer organization. So I started learning the entertainment business on nights and weekends, essentially helping these pro bono clients and my friends who couldn't afford legal. I mean, that's the messed up thing. And especially with artists, they're so vulnerable to being taken advantage of, that I knew, I don't know, I definitely didn't want to go to entertainment immediately because I'm from LA. Everyone assumed once I left, oh, you're going to go back to LA and practice entertainment? I'm like, ew, no. Because I wanted to learn how to be a corporate attorney. I didn't realize that you could learn how to be a corporate attorney in entertainment, but I didn't have a hookup or a mentor or anything. So I was like, let me learn how to be a corporate attorney on entertainment nights and weekends, because I saw my people needed me, because I did keep seeing people getting screwed and all these attorneys who don't look like them or care about them. I could definitely see that. So by the time I got back to LA finally to work for that REIT, and I had been out of law school almost 10 years, and some of my artist friends that I met back in the day in Philly were like, hey, for real now, I can pay you now. And I'm like, that's the magic word, okay. And so I was like, well, yeah, now. And I was like, and it still is a big risk though after 10 years. And my mother to this day is still like, I wish you could just get a job with the government or something steady, even though working with the government is not steady. You get furloughed real quick. But I think, I mean, that is the one thing that I got from my father's entrepreneurial spirit. And also, I'm kind of like, we only got this one life. F it. I'm going to try it. And I give myself a certain number of years to, build the business. But yeah, so I hung my own shingle. Of course, having to save.
2015? Was that 2015? Yes,
January 2000 it was like as soon as I left the REIT, which was November, like late November 2014. I went straight to the East Coast to finally see people because I hadn't seen anyone in 2 years. Finally, for Thanksgiving, saw my people in Chester, PA, and New York, and all that, and then in DC, and then I started working immediately for artists, but January 1 or 2nd, 2015 was when law offices of Kelly D. Shapiro were official, and by then I had finally gotten some mentors, and one who was on the startup side, Terrence Yang, he's up in San Francisco, but he encouraged me, and he went to, he was also like me, USC, Harvard Law, but he went to Harvard Law around the time of Obama and Michelle. So he's a little older, but he encouraged me to get into the startup scene and to be a startup attorney. And so he trained me on like SAFEs, which are simple agreements for future equity, and convertible notes. And that's just, when you're starting these new businesses and startups, and, startups are different than small businesses. They are different. It's a different beast. They're meant to grow very, very, very quickly and then spin off, and then you have to exit and everyone's happy and rich. But of course, 9 out of 10 startups fail. But my mentor, he encouraged me to get in, and he'd have me, and that's when I also finally had the time and the motivation to get very, very involved with all of my alumni and networking groups.
Sure.
Especially if you're gonna start your own thing, you gotta start networking your butt off, right?
Sure.
I mean, what do you do for networking? Or do you...
Well, so when I first started out, I'm in a very, very small town. And so when we first started, we just had like a big thing where everybody from the church came to my swearing-in ceremony. And, there's one little courthouse, and then, North Carolina and Hereford, North Carolina, this is such a small place. So everybody knows what's going on. So Facebook community is really like real life.
Right.
Because everybody is seeing what everybody's doing all the time. And so whether you're doing great or whether you're doing awful, we tend to kind of know that. And so, a lot of partnerships with the university.
Okay.
Speeches at the high school.
That's networking, yeah. I do that stuff too. Well, more at the church. I've given
cookouts at the firm, DJ at the firm.
You DJ?
No. I'll get the radio station to come to the firm.
Oh, nice.
We'll, like have like a cookout at the firm. When homecoming comes around, I went to Elizabeth City, and so Elizabeth City State is my alma mater. And so when it's homecoming, try to do something and sponsor Boys and Girls Club.
That's networking, yeah. All right, so
yes, it's a little different.
So and again, like the reason why I paid for this degree is also I paid for the network, right? So I immediately was like, and he was like, join the board of Harvard Law School Association of LA. I had tried to get into, but when I had tried to network earlier, when I was working for other people, like at law firms or in-house counsel, the networking was more for personal use, you know, because I didn't know anyone in the city and all that. It wasn't really for career stuff.
Did it flip? Did it flip?
It flipped 1,000% when
because that was organic. You were.
When I started my own thing. Yeah, I mean, I always like. Obviously, I'm social. I like people, but and I think that's why I've been successful is when I network. It's not like a pain. Like I know a lot of people that I literally would be like, hey, I'm going to this, come with me, because they hate it. But I'm like, you just started your own thing. You need to be out, because I love to go out and I'll moderate a thing. I'll plan a panel.
Yeah. I think
and my panels are going to be.
I think you were hosting. I think you were hosting something. That's how I found you. And when you get in trouble or when you need something, it's always so much easier to call people when you already have a relationship with them, as opposed to like, hey, I kind of need your help. Because it's like, you know, who is this jerk calling me? Well, you know, I was just at your daughter's christening the other week. So those organic relationships are the best ones. And that's the great thing about social media now, though, because now like I have all the friends that I can connect with on so many different levels, whether it's, you know, looking at, I mean, you have an awesome office hours, and I'm gonna encourage everybody on Sundays. It'll be about 6 o'clock our time. And it goes on for about 2 to 3 to 4 hours, and she's opening to answering all tons of questions.
Yeah, it's free game.
Things that I can't even fathom about entertainment law, to the most simple of questions like, you know, where should I file my taxes, or what is an LLC? She's answering all of those questions, and she never misses one. I was actually on watching early in the day. Today is Sunday, Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day, by the way, to all the mothers. Before I let you go, I got one more question for you. I made my mom and my wife watch. I didn't have to make them, I'm sorry. I highly suggested that they watch Self-Made on Netflix. The story of Madam C.J. Walker. And when I watched it, I know, you know, as a black man, I felt incredible about it. It wasn't a gender motivation. It was just like, this lady was just so solid. She had so many. She had all of the business weapons in one. She knew how to sell. She knew how to be creative. She knew how to overcome. She was bold. She knew how to keep the right people around her. You guys got to watch that movie.
Well, except for Blair Underwood, yeah.
Well, so that was the thing. He was the ad guy, though. So Blair Underwood was
actually, yeah. You're right. And
before he got lost.
Before he got lost, he was that. Yeah.
I mean, watch the movie and come back. Pause this. Go watch the movie on Netflix and come back. That was her husband, because the first husband she had was crazy. He was beating on her. She found Blair. She got started. He was helping with the ads, and whenever they would have the meetings with the potential investors, he was okay. He knew, it was almost like he knew that he needed to look like he was leading the show. But when his wife stepped up, he stepped back, and he was kind of saying like, "Wife, I kind of need to do that." But she was like, "Nah, I got it." He was like, "Hey, this is her thing." So
I like that. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. And she did, and that's the thing. It's like you have to have your own personal board of advisors. I mean, when I was 10, I appointed my godmother to be my godmother, which, you know, godmothers are supposed to be anointed with, you know, before the birth. But I was like, no, I need you in my life. And guess what? After this, I'm going back to my godmother's because she is my spiritual advisor. She is, and she's also such a beacon of light. And and I love my mother, but she is an ex-Marine. She's not happy and all this. Like my mother and I are all very different too. Like I'm sometimes too much for my mom because she's like, chill out, you know, but with my God, you know, so I started to collect all these figures that I knew I'd need on
what's her name?
Kathy.
Kathy, shout out Kathy.
But no, I knew I need these people. So yeah, having the right people, and also that's why I have a huge network, and people think I have like all these best friends. Actually, my circle's pretty small, and the majority of my friends are my close friends. I have to say, we have similar experiences, meaning there's a lot of lawyers, doctors, veterinarians, engineers, accountants. Like we kind of are same ilk-ish. Not saying I can't have my best friend from childhood. She never went to college and all these things. It's not like that, and we're still very close. But we just have a different experience. But you know, you have to be just very cognizant of who's around you. I don't have anyone who's just, you know, hating or continuously picking the wrong partner and thinking everyone else is going to be your therapist or all that. All my friends are so self-sufficient and independent, and like we can't. Like we trust each other to know what's best for ourselves, and we have experts that we go to, meaning paid therapists and stuff. And so, you know, in my best friend Dorothy, who she's married with 2 kids now, and it's like we don't opine on each other's personal lives because we know better. Like we're too grown. I mean, even though I've known her, we met at a think tank when we were both in college, and now we're all grown up and stuff. But to have those positive reinforcements, if anything, Dorothy and I will share like, ooh, did you see Oprah posted this Super Soul, and it was about, you know, taking your time, reclaiming your time, you know, all that stuff. Like if your squad isn't just lifting you up and sending you good things. I mean, I had a couple of mean girls that would send me these articles. I'm like, why are you sending this to me? Like, this is so negative. Like, and so guess what? I don't really hang out with them anymore. I don't care if they're cool and popular, whatever. It's like, I don't think you, like, we're not on the same wave. But with entertainment, going back to how I kind of fell into that, once I said, all right, 50% entertainment, 50% stars, which I like, because if I did either 100%, I think I'd go nuts, because entertainment is too emotional, and I love my clients, but sometimes I want to strangle them, and it's like, read the document. And then on startup side, I'm kind of also like, the entrepreneurs can be nuts too, but the good ones are crazy, because you kind of have to be crazy to, right? Yeah. So I love that balance, but I have to be the kind of beacon of hope, light, and the authority, and also someone they can always count on to be the voice of reason. And so, you know, that's also why I make sure my coping mechanisms are good things for me, because so many people depend on me to be that sense of, you know, stability and guidance. And so I love who I'm kind of getting to be, you know, just walking on the path, as they say. But with entertainment, I love it that so many artists, and a lot of it stems from my time in Philly. That's why DJ Jazzy Jeff came to me 5 years ago and was like, and I was recommended to him from like people I didn't even know who knew me in Philly. Sure. And I only lived in Philly for 3 years. So people think I'm from there. I'm like, I was only there for 3 years, but I had made so many great relationships. And, you know, and also I always try to make people feel good when I leave an interaction. You know, it's not about like what happened if somebody lost money on a deal or whatever. It's how you made people feel. So
is that Dale Carnegie? Is that Dale Carnegie? People always remember how you made them feel.
That sounds like something Carnegie would say. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know. Can I say one last thing though about?
You can say as many things as you want to say.
No, about the C.J. Walker movie.
Please do.
So again, I'd say read articles about the actual story, read the book if you have time, because the Netflix spin on it was the Hollywood spin.
Sure.
First of all, her main nemesis was not a light-skinned mixed girl, okay? It was actually, I think she was a dark-skinned Black woman. She was definitely a Black woman. She was not mixed. Mm-hmm. And she was very talented at science, and I think was like a prodigy or something. That's who C.J. Walker had the first tete-a-tete with, not that little light-skinned chick.
Addie, you talking about Addie?
Yeah, and people look at me and they're like, "What are you talking about? Some light-skinned?" Okay, so people understand. I was raised by my mother, so my eyeballs see from my mom, not whatever you see here. So me and my mom were just joking, just like, yeah, the light-skinned chicks got it kind of bad, but they can handle it. But that wasn't necessarily true. And I think it would have been, stronger to have two dark-skinned Black women, like two queens, but whatever, they had to make it Hollywood. And some other things that were not, well, another thing I didn't love, I know this woman I'm friends with a lot of her close friends, and we've hung out once in a group, but Tiffany Haddish, no. She, first of all, when she opened her mouth, I'm like, are we in Englewood? 2006? That's what she sounds like. She did not sound like, she was not in 1917 or whenever that was. Come on. Like,
she has such a personality that I didn't even think about that.
Like, as
soon as I saw her, I was like, oh, okay, it's Tiffany Haddish, and it didn't even dawn on me that she may not quite fit the character. But
no, it was.
I was already enjoying the movie at that point. I was fine with it. I was fine with it.
Yes, I know. There's been, I've actually I've watched a couple of, The Grapevine. It's it's a YouTube page, and it's I forgot who started it, but it's basically like Black folks. They look to be around 30, 30s, late 20s, and the 30s people, and they break down certain issues. And they had one, I think, talking about the CJ thing, and I just, I try to keep my ear to the streets. But yeah, everyone was talking about how Tiffany Haddish was like, because her acting wasn't, and also it was just, her accent just took me out. I'm like, we're in 2002 Inglewood, like it's not. But they got her for the name recognition, and that was fine. I mean, but of course the story of a great woman entrepreneur is always welcomed. And like I said, I was a part of the live watch party on Twitter because her great granddaughter is a graduate of Harvard University. And so since one of my boards, and this is networking, but this particular board is not networking, it's just super fun, but I am communications co-chair of the Harvard Black Alumni Society. So every Black graduate, every grad school, undergrad, everybody. And so we co-sponsored the watch party for that. And I, of course, wanted to, but from the official account, which I, manage, wanted to be like, the real chick wasn't mixed. Just saying, for the mixed girls, like, don't be too hard.
I'll let everybody know that I just I thought they did. I thought the writers did a good job. I guess if you had to like match what would have been those things that we always think about, how do you think Madam C.J. Walker would translate in 2020 if she was to start today? Do you think she would fare the same? I mean, I can't.
She'd do great. Just like, it's like I can almost, see her story in, TaskRabbit. Do you guys use TaskRabbit over there? Mm-hmm. So that's a Black female founder. And they were acquired. I forget what company acquired them. And she's still on though. She's still in the company, but under the acquisition. Procter & Gamble or something, or some huge, So I'd say her. I mean, or any of, honestly, a lot of my Black female founders who, you're under such insurmountable pressure and all these naysayers and, even, as they say, be your own man's. I mean, so many haters from within our own community. That's what really pains me, is when you get the hate from that. But so to not even think about that and to push forward anyway and to believe in your dream, even if you're just making a pre-existing product better, right? That's what CJ did. Or I guess she kind of stole the first product a little bit. But listen, I used the hot comb this morning, so we're gonna let her ride because because she definitely deserves her accolades. But no, I think she'd do well. I think now it's even more okay and socially acceptable to be a single woman, so she wouldn't have to worry about being a married woman and having her husband speak for her, or you have to go to the men's meeting and then squeeze your way in, although that still is kind of to this day. I mean, they talk about manels, all men panels, and those things. When I go to certain things, I'm like, am I the only woman here? I'm certainly the only person of color. So I mean, I think she'd do well. I would hope that she would hold out and not be acquired by another company, and just, I mean, because that was in the movie too, right? Yeah. Didn't somebody want to acquire her and they're like, no? And it was a point of her to make her employees empowered so they can go out and create their own wealth. And not, and remember, they wanted to get her product, just let us just carry your product instead of having the salespeople. I think that was my favorite scene, when she was like, no, I'm going to keep you guys employed, because that is what I think really separates the legendary founders and CEOs than cowards, I think.
Yes, listen, I'm not gonna keep you, but I gotta say my two favorite parts were when she approached the funeral home guy and he tried to rape her, and then she came home and her father-in-law was at the house, and she was like, what do I do? Should I tell CJ? And the old wise owl was like, no, don't tell him, because if you tell him, only bad things can happen, right? And when the gentleman got that $500 when she was waiting for Booker T. Washington to come to the house, and he was like, you know what, here's $500. You have the greatest mind, you have the will, you're so bold, take this money. And he was kind of like her guardian the whole time as she got older. It was like the kind of side characters that like kind of touch your heart, because I think in life, if we keep our eyes open, God always puts people in our places.
Yes, they do.
They can help us, and it may be the most uncommon person. And I think that's probably why I cried at my wedding, was because, 5 years ago, before my wife ever came back, I looked into the crowd and I just saw like 5 key people that have always been there for me like my whole life, and like for no apparent reason than they love me, right? And they were sitting here and I was bawling. My wife she's not even at the back door. Yeah, there's a great picture of my brother. He was behind me laughing at me while I was crying. I don't know if my little brother had ever seen me cry before. But listen, guys, listen, Kelly, you don't have to worry about any haters, because you are always giving. And as long as you are always giving, people can't say anything. What are they going to say as long as you are always giving value? She's always helping men. I go on and listen to her show every week, guys. I'm going to link all of your social media. Listen, if there's a person that on all of my channel that you need to get to know, is this young lady, because while she's super, super smart, her intelligence translates very good to Southern behavior. So please, by all, that just means, like, because I'll listen to your show at times, and like you're going to like super like high entertainment law stuff that I just don't know, and then in the next sentence you'll bring it back. You was like, guys, what I meant was this, and I'm like, oh, and I have a whole lot of
I do that all the time. Yes, I break it down.
I have a whole lot of agree, and I'm still like, oh yes. But listen, guys, definitely, she's an amazing woman. Watch out for her. She is the thought leader when it comes to entertainment law. Everybody goes to her. And so,
or if you have a startup, not to interrupt you, but if you have a product you want, I mean, that's what happens. And some of I don't know if you guys know Pharaoh Monch, who the rapper from Queens. I actually represent him more with his startup world, because I got him into the medical device accessory world. Because when he said he wanted to create a product, I'm like, do you want to start a business? I can start a business. Let's go. And I found him a co-founder who knew the finance side. I got a product designer to make a product. I got meetings with, also. So I'm like, let's go. So I'm about, I'm all about helping people get multiple streams of revenue. One. And also just helping our peeps just become more familiar with these different industries and different areas of commerce that I feel like we've been shut out of, but we can find a way and pivot in and, and just try to empower and educate people and get more people into venture capital. That there should be more and more Black people in venture capital, because you can invest in these smaller companies, and we need to make more Black billionaires. And that's in tech and stuff, that's when you make those. So on the entertainment side, trying to continue to help people not get stolen from, and just entertainment is as bad as you think it is, which is why I'm happy to be there as one of the good guys. And then on the startup side, for these businesses to try and get some generational wealth, coming down the pipe. So I just want everyone to do the best that they can and, work whatever lot you got, growing up in Hermosa with this angry Jewish man from New York that I'm like, who is this? And then I have my mom, and I'm like, well, you know what? I'm gonna work what I got, and just don't take advice from anyone whose position you wouldn't want to be in, because those people are usually the ones who give out a lot of advice, life advice, and I'm like, why would I take advice from you? So you gotta just direct your own movie, and you have to just be very focused and have just try not to get distracted too much, but also even yourself and meditate. Do you meditate?
I pray.
Praying is great. Meditation is like a supersized version of that. And so I meditate after I pray, after I read the daily word every morning. Mm-hmm. Even though I'm not technically Christian, but I believe in all of the things, but just to stay present and just keep marching forward and say yes. Like a lot of people, I know so many people are pessimists and they say no to everything, and I think they block their own blessings. And I actually know a very now successful female founder of Blavity, if anyone knows that amazing it's a media company specifically for Black millennials, but her and I were talking last year, and she was like, yeah, I used to say no to everything, because she just thought, oh, they're coming after, like she just didn't trust enough. And I think because I grew up where I grew up, and one of the good things about growing up being the only Black person was I kind of got, there are some good things I got from growing up in a white community. One, that therapy is nothing to be ashamed of, and go and get yourself better, because that finally are starting to see that yes, mental health is it's okay. It's not, shouldn't be stigmatized. Go to church also, but we can also have therapy. But also just come from a place of yes. And I think, what was it, Shonda Rhimes, I think, the place of your year of yes. I mean, I've kind of always been like that, and I say yes to new friends. I know that song came out, like No New Friends. And I'm like, if I didn't have new friends, I wouldn't have, because I don't have any friends from when I grew up, right? So I think having that attitude has helped me just stay positive and be open. And my life is so full because someone had to point this out to me, my girlfriend from law school, because I think I was kvetching about, oh, well, I don't have my compound in Malibu yet, and I don't have this and that. And she was like, yeah, but this whole time you've been collecting human capital. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. And that, for me, I think that's why I'm also so happy, is because I get to just have just such a full, colorful life of service, and also get to work with people I want to, which I think is the true definition of success. Because I could be miserable making a bunch of money at some, law firm and, swallowing my pride every day. Mother told me when I finally went full blonde, because I kept getting highlights and just went with it. And the first day I walked into my mother's house with full blonde hair, she looked up at me and said, I thought blonde hair was for white women. And I said, well, not today. But that's my mom, and I accept her for who she is too. So my mother's it takes her a while to come back around, and a month later, we were meeting for lunch in West Hollywood or something, and I walk in and she was like, I really like the blonde on you. So either way, if you get there eventually, or you start off just being open, as long as you get there, we'll be all right.
Yeah, that's it, guys. Real conversations. Thank you.
Sorry if I went off script.
I always want. I'm never gonna cut a great thought leader like you off. I really, really appreciate it. Your heart is so big, more than anything else.
It is. I want everyone to. I want all of us to win. Big, huge barbecue. Everyone comes to the cookout. Who deserves to be there?
Exactly. Thank you,
guys.
Take
one screenshot before we. You can stop taping, but I want to take a screenshot before we log off.
Got you. Real conversations. Thank you, Ms. Shapiro, Attorney Shapiro. Please comment on the bottom. Let her know she needs to come back before quarantine is over, because once quarantine is over, she's going to be back on the jet doing what she does with all of these entertainers and startups. Thank you so much.